this way.
Is it better? It helps to turn it on. Welcome everyone to today's debrief, race day number 2 in the Worlds. It was quite a different day today than yesterday. It was more shifty, it was less wind, and it was in the beginning, I guess it was tricky until everyone sorted out that it was the left side that was good, both upwind and downwind. And when we had the weather brief this morning, when you saw the current, the odds for going left wasn't that big. But we have some tracking. We have put the tracking on an overlay on a map, and that can explain why we had that huge current line on the left side. So, but before we go to the tracking and the statistic from SAP Sailing Analytics, we have a new panel today. We have Thomas Hallberg from Silja. We have Harry Rocher from Luna, and you have Jeffrey Moore from Bangalore. And I think it would be polite to start with you, Jeff, since you had the best day according to the results in the panel.
So far.
You scored, you were 1 and 2 in the races. Can you tell us a little bit when you were going out to the race course, what was the plan? Had you picked your side? We can go through if we take the first race first.
Yeah, the first race was, we had a very difficult time deciding which end of the line was favored, and then until the boat gets hardened up hard, you can't really tell. So it looked like most of the boats were pushing towards the boat end, and we were down by the leeward end. And when we came off the line, we didn't know for sure if that was going to be the favorite end until we hardened up.
I think also, Thomas, can you tell us also about your first race, because you were 3 at the top mark?
Yeah, we basically, our plan was to start somewhere middle of the line and try to get over to port pretty early and head right with the current pushing a little bit from leeward or into less current, and we executed that and we believed in it. So we were okay, but the left was better still.
Yeah, and Harry, on Luna you also had a pretty good day. You were 3 and 4, so you were also up in at top of the fleet in the first race. Do you agree on the comments that have come, how to do the first upwind leg?
I don't know. The start was pin and start. That's why we were there. And when we got a good start, it took perhaps 3 minutes, and we were leading. And then we tacked and across the fleet, because in a way we wanted to right side. And the first beat went well. We were first. Actually, I think the best moment for us was when we had perhaps 30% left or something like that. We were the only one who tacked to starboard, because we saw that there was better pressure.
Yeah, I think we can go to the start, because you all 3 of you have said that pin end was favored, and I think all of you will be really surprised when we show how favored it was. So if we take the first slide here, it was 100.2 meters advantage at pin. 684.6 meters. It's 9.5 degrees bias. So the boats that started at the pin end was 100 meters ahead after 1 second. So, and all the boats, if you see here, we have marked the top 5 boats in that race, and they are all more or less at pin end. Yeah, you have a comment, Jeffrey?
I'd like to point out is one of the things that's a little deceiving is the current was not with the wind. What we detected is a right to left sweep of the current. And because we're not anchored to the bottom, that's going to bring our apparent wind, our current wind, more to the left, which made the pin end probably more favored than the race committee intended it to be.
Yeah, because you have wind change when you have that much current.
Yeah, all the boats are sliding to the left, so that brings us a left shifted current shift, we call it.
If we then go to the next slide, we have the stats taking out from the SAP Sailing Analytics, and we had the start delay. That's actually how many seconds it takes from the starting signal goes to when you are crossing the starting line.
Thomas, does the jury have this information right now? It might come in handy.
Yeah, they should have. So the Sailing Analytics also shows that it figures out that Miss U was over the line. So that's why it's almost 93 seconds before they cross the line. So I think, okay, when we went to the race 4, we had general recalls, but I think in race 3 we could be further up the line, because as the numbers are showing, it's pretty far distance up there. It's sag in the starting line, or the fleet. So
those are in meters, I take it, right? In the distance.
The distance meters, but start delays is second. Thomas?
The tracker is in my pocket when I'm sitting in the back of the boat, so I, you know.
Yeah, I know that, but when you are going in that speed, you are almost going like 3 or 4 meters per second. So you still see that. You still see you can push further, even though the tracker.
Yeah, but the 8 seconds. I mean, that's when I cross the line, isn't it? As a helmsman sitting in the back.
Yeah, but I mean, if you see Pandora and other boats.
2-3 seconds away.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy since it's 600 meters line and I don't have to ping in or everything. I'm happy with that instead of being up.
Yeah.
We're happy for you too.
If we take the next slide, this is the upwind. So everyone went to the left side. So there were not many tacks, and I think this is when we put the tracking on top of the map. It can explain a little bit about that time, the current line, because all day the current was really strong close to shore, and I think it went into a channel, and you see where the boat tacks. You are on top of what it's called in English, on top of a shelf. So I think on the other side of the current line, the current was still quite strong, and we were out checking the current between the races, and it was still a lot of current in the channel close to the shore.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It seemed like there were moments there where the boats to leeward were falling away, and the boats, of course, that made us concerned about the boats to the left, to windward of us, but they weren't gaining. It seemed like we were just in a nice little slot, and it looks like it's right over that shelf. It was about where we would have noticed that.
Yeah, and I also think that you see by the tracking that those boats that went further left, they were on the top. So if you go to the next slide, we have the statistic of the first upwind. Again, you see the position on the top. So Luna was the boat that sailed the shortest, which is a good sign. Short distance is then you sail smart. So
that's the first beat.
That's the first beat.
Yeah.
If you go to the next slide, we have the downwind. So it was everyone jibed. Now everyone set the spinnaker. It was a normal bear away, and they went all the way to the, almost to the corner. We saw on the second downwind that we will show later that those who jibed a little earlier gained on the one that went to the corner. But again, it was pretty obvious that you just kept on going from the top mark, and you made one jibe, and those boats who jibed in pressure, they gained on the one that was sailing a little further. Do you have any comment on the downwind leg, Harry?
Not especially. The pressure varied quite a lot, so we just tried to take them and go down when it was possible, and then now and then a bit more up, nothing else.
Yeah, there's such a huge advantage not to jibe, to stay on starboard for a long, long time, and then it became a very difficult ley line call. I think when we jibed, we actually overstood a little bit, and I think a couple of boats ahead of us had overstood as well, so we passed them.
I think if we go to the next slide, we have the stats. It seems like I have swapped SOG and maneuvers on this one. But again, the one that sailed the shortest was also in the lead. I think if we go to the second upwind, because on the second upwind, since we had the gate, there were half the fleet picked the left gate and half the fleet picked the right gate. So here you see that a lot of the boats, they went on the left gate, continue on, and then tacked into the middle of the race course and then back, because I think it was hard to take that first tack once you pass the gate. So everyone kept on going, and those actually lost distance to the two boats that went to the right gate, to the left side, one tack or two tacks, but on this all the way up left. Do you agree on that, Jeffrey?
We rounded the right gate, I believe, and it was a bit of a, more maneuvering. You had to make a bigger turn around it, but I think we ended up gaining. Aside from just current, there seemed to be left pressure all the time. There were moments where the right would look okay, and then there'd be this big left winds, and I think that's what the left side. There's a current and wind, I think. There's some wind along that shoreline that seemed to be pretty strong.
Yeah. Do you have a comment on that, Thomas?
No, do you?
I always have a comment.
No, I mean, we saw that current line, yes, and we were scared of going left, and that's why we didn't go left in the second beat, but we're completely wrong, and that current hit to leeward and gave pressure. That's what I read from it. But obviously there might have been a lot more wind as well. But I don't know. I mean, it's relative to the water, and that's what you said. We sort of did really bad in the second, so yeah, no more.
Yeah, I think also all day it was in general more pressure on the left side as well. So yeah, I think that was the safe choice was the left.
I don't want to give up too many of our secrets here, but I think the important thing about the current there is when you were on port tack, you were not straight into the current. The current was from right to left. So that has the effect of giving you a left shift or a lifted shift on port tack. And so, yeah, there was a negative by being set backwards by the current, but there was a positive by getting the left shift. So we were keenly watching that. I think we all saw that current line. We were quite fearful. But when I watched boats cross it, I didn't see boats immediately fall off the edge. They sort of held. So we were keenly watching for that, but we didn't. I think because there was a right to left movement that sort of neutralized the current there.
Yeah, because the true wind angle changes when you sail in current. Yeah.
A lot of people miss on that. When the current is going across the wind, it changes the wind that we sail in, and I think that's a very difficult thing to calculate. We were talking about that last night.
I think most dinghy sailors call it that they are getting the current on lee bow or something, but it's actually not the current pushing the bow. It's actually changing the true wind direction.
Right.
So you sail in a different wind when you are in current, when it's not 90 degrees on the race course. I think it's a good point. Then we have the next slide. So again, I have swapped the maneuvers and SOG, but it shows the same thing all the time. Those boats that went to the left sailed the shortest distance and were holding their place in the fleet. So what we are going to do is, after this debrief, we are going to have the race replayed on the screens. So then you can all watch. I'm not sure how we can do it technically, but maybe we can have race number 1 there and race number 2 there. I'm not sure, but we will show the races. So those who sailed good in race 1 can have a look at that, and those who sailed good in race 2 can have a look at that. All these numbers will be published, so you can have it later. This debrief is also sent online, so you can go and have a look at it later. Before we end this debrief, are there any questions to the panel? No? We have one. The tracking? Yeah. Not now. We can do it later. Okay. We can do it later, but or you can go and have a look at it. No more questions? Okay. Thank you for now. Thank you for coming. We will have a new weather brief tomorrow morning at 9:30 and a new debrief here in the afternoon. So until then, have a nice evening and enjoy.